you a little bit about Scott's background. Scott's a graduate of Princeton University. He managed Johnson & Higgins USA Middle Market Operations out of Philadelphia. He moved to the large account division, managed such accounts as Comcast, Campbell Soup, University of Pennsylvania. He departed Johnson & Higgins in 1990 to start the Addis Group. As a result of the firm's unique process, he was recognized as Inc. Magazine's Entrepreneur of the Year in 1993. And he was recognized in National Underwriters as the Agency of the Year in 2003. He's been named one of the 25 most innovative agents in America by National Alliance and the Franklin Award for contribution to the industry. His personal book when he was an agent was $11 million. That's pretty astounding, isn't it? He's the author of the book Summit, and today he serves as CEO of Beyond Insurance, an organization focused on helping insurance organizations innovate and transform. Scott resides in Villanova with his wife Bobby and has 3 grown boys. So he's excited about the playoffs. So as JGP, as you all know, we're an evolving company. And continue to evolve and keep pace with the times. So this initiative is meant to take us to another level. We think the Wedge is a wonderful process. Gets us into clients, we can provide tactical support, we can win a lot of business. As we want to rotate into larger accounts and more sophisticated accounts, we felt we needed another platform. And Scott has that platform. So even though Scott has a great resume and he looks like he may walk on water, just remember you're not going to get a magic bullet today. But what we are going to do is introduce a new process, a new way of thinking, get everybody's feedback after today, and we'll see where we take it from here. So all your stuff.
Thank you, Jim, very much. I'm very honored to be with you guys today. Jim, you're exactly right. I do not have magic bullets, and if anything, if my wife were here, she'd talk about all the flaws that I have. A little bit of background. I come before you a person that has a huge fear of failure. In high school, I started realizing I was very lucky. I captained 3 sports in high school, and at the end of basketball games, of the tight game, I never wanted to be the guy receiving the ball. I wanted to pass the ball in. In soccer, if there was a penalty kick, I never wanted to take the penalty kick. In baseball, it was weird. We could be down 4-2, and I said, oh my gosh, if this guy gets on, that gets on, I could be up at the key point. So anyhow, I go to Princeton, and I decided to be a psychology major. And loving sports, my junior research was analysis of athletes in pressure situations. And I was trying to find out, in total pressure, what allowed Michael Jordan, without question, to go ahead and take over the game. Or to go ahead and say, what allows Tom Brady at the end of the game to feel so confident he knows he's going to win the game? On the other hand, what makes one athlete go ahead and crumble? In the mid-'70s, there was very little on sports psychology or the inner game of golf by a guy named Galloway. So I was literally doing all this research. And in reality, it was about me and trying to understand about me. I was very lucky. I did captain 2 sports at Princeton, soccer. We were number 5 in the country. Bob Bradley, you might know the name. Bob's son, Michael, plays on the U.S. national team. Bob was on the team with us. And baseball, we were not very strong. So anyhow, I was wildly excited. I was doing all this research, and the plan was my senior year to do a personality profile. And if we could actually find out one person based upon personality profile reacts differently than another, we might be finding something of significance. I would like you guys to recommend at some point during your first prospect interview for you to go ahead and to tell the client something like this. So Darren, could I role play on you? Darren, when I came in this meeting today, I knew how much I wanted to work with you in your business. But having had a chance to understand your visions, your goals, your dreams, your aspirations, where you want to take this company, I can't wait to work with you. I cannot wait to take you through our process. Having said that, as much as I want to work with you, at J.G. Parker, we're very particular. I personally am trying to work on 10 key accounts in a given year, and as a firm, we're very, very particular. Having said that, may I introduce the J.G. Parker criteria filter? Okay, I explain, and the more I seem to say we're selective, guess what happens? They want you more. And then you say we've got a criteria filter. Now, what I'd like to do is I go through the 3 criteria. I would like you to imagine you're out front, and there's a light. Either it's red, meaning stop, there's a problem, yellow, caution, or green, proceed. Darren, our first criteria is the relationship you have with your current agent or broker. Who is your current agent or broker?
Dan Peck,
What do you think of Dan?
great guy,
How long have you been with him?
10 years.
Wow, that's a long time. What makes him so special?
Great guy.
Okay, now if you don't mind, may I ask you 3 pretty deep questions? When you look at your accountant or your attorney, would you put Dan at the same level?
Sure, he's one of the people I pick up the phone and call when there's an issue.
That's awesome. There's a great trust and respect here. I normally don't hear that. On a referability index 0 to 10, 0 low, 10, where would Dan fit in?
8,
Why not 10?
because I didn't want to give you 10.
Okay. And the last question was, would he know the 3 most critical things that keep you awake at night?
No,
Really? I'm surprised. Why does he know the 3 most critical things that keep you awake at night?
because he's never asked and
Okay.
I've never told him.
Okay, so what light is that? Green means you can proceed and get past the relationship. Yellow, caution. Red mean there's no way. What light would you give that? I think yellow also. I thought it was a deep red, and then he doesn't know the 3 most critical things. He gave an 8, not 10. But you got to sit back. It is a 10-year relationship. Okay. The next criteria at JG Parker, we like to be able to present you in the marketplace as best in class. Having said that, what you've told me today has given me a lot of ammunition, but may I come back next week and meet with a couple other people, other leaders of your company, and I want to challenge them to say, from your perspective, what makes you best in class? That allows me to really put together a thought process how I present you to the marketplace. Might I come back next week and meet other leaders of your company and maybe spend 10 to 15 minutes?
Sure.
Okay, what light is that? So right now I'm yellow, green. And a few moments ago, I explained the unique process we have. Do you like our process?
Yes.
Okay, so yellow, green, green. So all that I did in the beginning of my career is said, but in the first meeting, I want to know, am I playing uphill into the wind, downhill to wind it back, or at least on a level playing field? So it's true. I want to work on this, and I want to work with you. Having said it, we've got the JG Parker criteria filter. Relationship with a broker, access to management team, and enthusiasm for the process. Okay, is that helpful? So that's just a way I have always protected myself. Okay, I want to make sure we've got this mission set. So I'm going to ask you the question, and you can read it up there. Is this a mission that you're in this room for? To capitalize upon James G. Parker's track record of success and enviable brand to design and build a business unit offering risk assessments and risk profile improvement strategies to larger, more sophisticated clients. Is that where we're headed? So let's go to exercises. In front of you, you guys have an exercises here. Could you take 2 minutes and do exercise 1? In some ways, as I understand it, you have lots of capabilities. In some ways, take advantage of the capabilities you've worked so hard to build. Take advantage of the skill set you guys have to go ahead and serve a larger client. If you could pick a word, and by the way, the word does not have to be there, go to exercise 2. What one word capitalizes upon this mission? When I ask the question, and I'm all around the country in front of thousands of agents or brokers each year, I ask one question. If you could change one thing about the industry, what would you change? 90% do not like the way we're perceived. Well, I live by a process of helping clients to identify, prioritize, and measure risks, and then I help them think strategically. To me, the insurance is one arrow in my quiver, but it does not define me. You know, you sound like a financial planner. They're all saying they're doing planning. In reality, you're hawking product. Nice to meet you. He walks away. I went from being this amazing 0-18 coach to a moron because I was in the insurance business. I remember standing there by myself at that point and said, this is crazy. Part of today's program, by the way, I'm going to challenge you to understand in a very serious method, what is your cause? What's your purpose? So to finish the story, I get in the car that night, and Bobby goes, "Oh my God, Scott, that was a great party, wasn't it?" I said, "It stunk." I said, "It's horrible." She goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "Some moron comes up to me, thought I was a CPA or an attorney." And she goes, "Scott, what happened?" I said, "It was brutal." I said, "It was gory. The guy couldn't have run." She says, "Scott, come on, be a big boy. Do you really care?" I said, "Bobby, yes, I care a lot. You're a registered nurse. Do you care how people perceive you? Do you know what it's like every day to do what your husband does? I go ahead and help businesses and families to understand the risks and the uncertainties that face them, and my job is to go and explore alternatives. How do we go ahead and minimize risk and uncertainties?" That is a huge calling, a bigger calling than I believe any attorney, any CPA, any investment advisor. Are what they're doing important? Sure. Maybe not as important as a physician who's saving one's life, but I really believe, think of the magnitude of what we do. We take a family and wrap our arms around and protect that family. We take a business and we think strategically and protect that business. That is a huge calling. And I said, "I don't like the way I'm being perceived." So, and she says, "Scott, I know it's upsetting to you, and I'm sorry you took it so hard, but you can't change it." And I said, "Bobby, I will change it." She goes, "What do you mean?" And I said, "No one's ever going to make me feel that way again." Today, I've actually built a program called Certified Risk Architect. We have a faculty, we've got a certification board. Tomorrow in Tempe, Arizona, we will graduate the class of 2017 to be Certified Risk Architects. So I took something from basically a negative into a positive. I actually asked a question of John and Jim last night about, would you be permitted or would you wish to go ahead and stop calling yourself producers or agents and call yourself business risk analysts or risk consultants? I assume that's up to you, but if you really truly believe that you are a risk consultant or business risk analyst, go ahead, go for it. So here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about 3 types of people in the world: quitters, campers, and climbers. There are no quitters in this room. There may be campers and climbers. We'll talk about that. We're going to talk about Seth Godin's World of the Purple Cow, lessons from the Sharks. The Sharks will be here a little bit later this morning. I know you're going to enjoy listening to them. We're going to discover your why with Simon Sinek. We're going to talk about brand differentiation. We're going to talk about, what do you see, not me, what do you see in the customer experience journey for larger accounts? As we said in the beginning, how do you go and achieve some of these outcomes you want for these larger accounts? I'm going to give you a case study of a firm I worked with before in Detroit to talk about how they went ahead and transformed to go after larger accounts. And then we're going to talk about an 8-step strategy map to build this business unit. At the end of today, we're going to ask you to turn to the person next, and you're going to talk about this operation, this unit you're developing, and so forth, why you're doing it and how you're doing it, what makes it unique, okay? I'm going to force you to deliver your value proposition, so I'm going to try to push you out as though we're already there with this thing's built, and you're going to say, "If you don't mind, sir, I know you're a 1,500 person organization. I'd like to talk to you today about our business unit and how it evolved and what we're doing. I've got a long way. I'm going to get you there to make you feel more comfortable. That's where we're going to go at the end. Is that fair?" A quitter never takes personal responsibility. You know what? We had the meeting and Lynette and Jared were there. Lynette wasn't on her game. And where was Jared at the right time? He could have said this: "Jared, you didn't do it. Lynette, you didn't do it. So how was I to be successful?" I happen to realize, however, that I believe 80% of the people I confront every day are campers. They're camping out at a certain level. Now, I agree that if you do something strenuous, you need to take a time out and sit back and say, "Whew, we got there. We got the account. We had that key renewal." Take a time out and celebrate the success. I realize there's a reason why you camp out, but permanent camping is not good. And I really see so many people, and my biggest beef is that these are people 45, 50 years old that have so much darn potential not realized. That's a camper. The good thing about a camper, by the way, the flame is still there. And what you might do is say, "You know what? You've got so much potential, so much energy. Let's go and climb together." A climber never stops growing and learning. They have purpose and passion in what they do regardless of their job in life. Climbers are positive thinkers. They never let obstacles get in their way. Regardless of background, advantages, good fortune, misfortune, they continue to climb. When they reach a dead end or overhand, they reroute. The climbers live life to the fullest. I really believe that purpose and passion is inside each climber. So I would like you to go to exercise 3, and if somebody that you care about is part of your team that needs to climb again, is now a camper, how would you motivate that person to climb? If someone, for example, in this room has so much darn potential that not realized and you think is camping out, how would you approach that person and say, you know what, let's climb together? How would you do that? Okay, I'm going to give a shot at a couple things. I think and this is just me personally because I see so many people out there camping out, I think they lose a vision for success. I think today we're working so hard getting tasks done, we forget to see that vision out there. I think there's one gift you could do is say, you know what, let's understand the you and the potential you have, and let's go ahead and see you at a certain point in time and what you can accomplish. And that's life. And so what's happened to a lot of us is we forget the vision because we're so busy doing the mundane things. So part of today's program is saying what could be the vision we have. And it's not just building a large unit, it's a vision we all have, the excitement we have to go ahead and move toward that vision. And the vision has to be supported with purpose and passion. So I do hope you're going to like the next clip. Purpose and passion. Michael Orr, as you may know, played in the NFL. Who did he play for? The Ravens. He's now retired, I believe. But you think about is, and I hope this hit you, what she reminded him is, Michael, you're part of a family. You have to protect these people. And maybe you've got to think, what is my purpose and passion? Is the same thing, blocking and tackling the risk issues confronting those you serve. A brown cow, if we're driving down the road and we see a brown cow, after a while it's a brown cow's a brown cow's a brown cow, but you never forget a purple cow. A purple cow represents somebody or something unique. In the book, I'd like to share some definitions that are very appropriate for where we're headed. Let's take a look at these. Purple means extraordinary, out of the box, remarkable, worth talking about, worth noticing. Where we're headed is to have people say, oh my God, J.G. Parker was really good before. You can't believe what they're doing. It's crazy. I can feel the energy. I can see the tools, the strategies, and so forth. I can see the process. It's really very cool. Nothing bad about a brown cow. Brown cows are simply ordinary. And I can tell you, I have had the chance of consulting with Heffernan a couple years ago and Bolton and with Stan Lohr up in they were part of our Surex partner years ago. I'm not impressed, you guys. I'm not being critical. I just don't see an impressive group of people in these organizations. Safe means risky. Now, we tell our kids to play it safe, but in reality, in the business world, if we're going to play it safe, safe means risky. Very good, the opposite, remarkable. Anxiety, false fear that corrupts your life. I want to take a quick time out there. As you know, I'm a nervous Nelly, but what I do is I've learned to live with that, and what I do is I confront my fears, and I go right at them, and I get past them. I look back and said, I got there. I'm convinced a lot of people see the fears out there, and they go and they step that back. And I just somehow said, you know what, go break through them. Anyone would comment there about how critical that is? Because you're going to have fear here. You're going to say, who am I to call on this 5,000 employee organization? Who am I to go ahead? We're JG Parker. We're large account or mid-market business, so forth. We really haven't been there. And you got to break through. Customers your best advisors, and fitting in is failing. You could start this process with some of your larger existing customers and actually said, you know what, I know there's a love affair now. What are other capabilities you might need? So just know there's a lot there. And the last thing is you cannot fit in. This is my favorite visual of the day, and I'd like to ask you where you are right now. If you have to come to work, where do you want to come to work? In the world of brown or purple? Why? Why, Tammy? You want to be energized, unique. You want to feel an environment that's going to be innovative and creative and so forth and pushing the envelope, correct? The problem is there's a river that separates the two worlds called Perception River. And if you look carefully, you're going to see alligators and crocodiles and a current which is so strong it pulls you back. You can't live in the world of purple unless you can go ahead and change someone's perception. Whose perception do you have to change? Seth Godin would say, you can think you're really cool, you can think you're out of the box, but at the end of the day, it's the consumer that grants you permission to live in the world of the purple cow. Having said that, I agree with each of you. You've got to somehow get the mojo. Part of my job is to give you the mojo to say, you know what, we are cool, we are cutting edge, we're developing and so forth, so you can literally want to be there and then feel confident when you get there. But Seth Godin would say, the person that decides you're here is there. The consumer is always trying to pull us back in the world of sameness. The consumer is trying to pull us to be aware of that. I'll just give you two things right now that might be helpful. I'll start with something called I3. I always believe if I can't do I3, I'm a brown cow. The first I is, do I understand at least one critical issue facing my customer? If I don't know one critical issue facing the customer, I'm a brown cow. Once I understand the issue, have I conveyed the implication of the issue? Issue, implication, intervention. It's really simple. Have I uncovered an issue, at least one issue? Have I conveyed the implication? And have we intervened on their behalf? The other is a tool I'm going to give you, which is a mind blower. It is absolutely so critical. I'm going to give you, in probably 1 minute or less, a technique to go really deep with relationships. It's called relational GPS. You think about, you get in your car, you put in your GPS, and when you do that, what does the GPS give you? Confidence you're going to get to a predetermined destination. So if you can understand your client's goals and passions and struggles, you can take them wherever you wish. Okay, I met the author of the book named Ed Wallace, who wrote the book Business Relationships at Last, and when I walked out of there, I was a defeated man in some way, and here's why. I realized with all my clients, as good as I thought I was, I had their P's. I knew their passions. I knew they like hunting, fishing, ball games, golf, theater. I knew their passions, but I had no idea their goals or their struggles. I cannot tell you how emotional it became when a client that I thought was totally together, sitting on boards in the Philadelphia and so forth, whatever, opened up to me and said they're losing the staff. Their people aren't relating to them. They're having difficulty with a spouse. The son or daughter is a substance abuser, or whatever it might be. And they start crying in front of me. I mean, that's pretty special in many ways. So that's the power of GPS. I'd be glad to do a webinar on GPS, get you articles on GPS, but just know, I think I3, issues, implications, interventions, and going deep with clients, that could be really, really critical, okay? Okay, you heard the sharks were coming, they're here. Next exercise, I'd like you to listen really carefully to each one of the sharks. We're gonna hear from each one, and with that, take away whatever you wish. Write down 2 or 3 things you took away. So they threw a lot at you in a short period of time. What are some things that you took away from that? There are times at which you can't keep that humility in there. You've got to say, here's who I am, here's where we are, and here's how we're best suited for you. I run my heart out for every client. I dig deep for every client. I go the extra mile, whatever. Who knows how you say it? Everybody's going to say it differently, but you have to somehow go ahead and portray your personal brand in a way where people go, wow, that person's impressive. That's Simon Sinek, and there's a book. It's a great read, by the way. Why is basically your cause, your purpose, or belief. You must not only know your why, you have to be able to do what? Articulate your why. Your why has to live inside of you. I'm convinced that a lot of the campers I see out there are great, great people, but what's happened? They don't have a why. They don't really have a cause. If they think their cause is broadening policy forms, getting better bids and so forth, they've really forgotten the essence of who they are in this business. And the why is a reason you get out of bed every morning. So let's go ahead and take a look at the video. So we're going to now talk into brand differentiation. And we're going to talk about, well, let's start with a question. How different and unique is the corporate brand? Forget about your individual brand. How different and how well perceived is a J.G. Parker brand right now? It's been 78.
So 40 years this year.
40 years. How strong is this brand?
There's definite name recognition.
How would people describe, if you were an outsider in the community, how would you describe this brand?
Nice office, nice building, get that one.
Professional, nice office.
Yeah,
Yeah, the people there come at you with honesty and integrity.
Okay? So that's what we're getting into, and we're going to give you a potential strategy to really test how strong the brand is. So exercise 6, if you could take a look at 6. The question here is, I know this is probably one of the toughest questions today, not the clients you're doing business with, but the larger, more sophisticated companies that might be in the state of California or in this area, how might they view you? Well, let's keep on moving the presentation, but one of the questions as we go down this path is, as we stand today, we're going to talk about how your existing clients are viewing you, and we're going to give a test with that. But the question is how some larger organization might perceive you now, because there's certainly, it could help you because you've done a great, great job in branding. So let's talk about perceived value. When a customer, and you guys are consumers, when you believe there is a differentiated platform that offers great value, people will pay more. They will redefine the relationship, erect barriers, and establish the seller as a trusted advisor. So just be aware that you as a customer, and maybe someone would give an example or two, when you've been willing to pay more for something. Starbucks is an example. You said, you know, I'm willing to pay more for Starbucks. And I really believe the great organizations have engineered customer experiences. I will share with you, I have a brother-in-law who is a billionaire. He is the founder and CEO of Urban Outfitters, Free People Anthropology. I have seen him grow up, and right now it's crazy. I think he's worth maybe 2 million or a million, billion, 7, whatever else. But they're really challenged right now. His whole thing was the experience they create when you come in the stores, and now being online, it's really challenged. How do you create this online experience? The guy will never give up. He's 7 years old. You'd have no idea he's worth anything. That's not who he is. He has a cause that's unbelievable. But the mission is really today is, how do you go ahead and create this online experience rather than the in-store experience? Okay, so it's been very interesting watching that. So I've learned a lot in the branding area from him. Okay, where we're headed is not introducing a unit, not having some nice tools. Where we're headed is convincing you we're on the bridge and building a bridge to build an engineered customer experience journey, where you're going to go ahead and engineer this journey, and you're, yes, going to contribute tools and strategies and your know-how, but you're going to say, how do we engineer experience where a large corporation literally is going gaga over what we've done? And you know how to push the motion buttons at all times. Okay, let's take a look at this slide. Is it worth the effort of what we're doing? Let's take a look at this. It's fascinating. From 2007 to 2012, through the best and worst of times, the customer experience leaders outperformed the broader stock market, generating a total return that was 3 times greater. These two firms, Watermark Consulting and Forrester Research, they actually study and actually can tell you who are the brand leaders and who are the brand laggards. You take the brand laggards, and here's where they are. These are the customer experience laggards. Here are the customer experience leaders. There is close to a 77% difference in performance over that period of time. So the question is it really worth us not only carving out, looking at this niche, but dedicating our time to build a really cool, robust, purple cow experience with why behind it? The answer is, if you look at the stock market, there's a huge, huge return for doing this. This is a fascinating study. There's a firm called Huthwaite, and Huthwaite went ahead and studied 35,000 sales transactions over 10 years, and they put yours and mine's purchasing decisions into 4 quadrants: shop, leverage, manage, risk, or partner. Now, the left-hand side is perceived importance of the product or service, and this is basically difficulty of obtaining the product or service. So let's play along with me. Not J.G. Parker, but the average agent or broker, how would the consumer view them? Would they see them as being highly important or low importance or moderate importance? How would the average consumer view their agent or broker? Will you play along with me and give me the benefit and say moderate importance and say they actually view them as somewhere in here? Is that fair? Okay. Next question. Irreplaceability. Would they say, well, they're moderately important, but if I lost my agent or broker, that'd be the end of the world. I could never replace my agent or broker. Or they say, no big deal. I'll go down the street and replace them with someone else. If they are difficult to replace from possible place out here, easy replaceables here. So where would the typical agent or broker fall in? Okay. So, wow. So we're going to fall in here. So I'm going to say we're up in the leverage category. Is that fair? So here's a $1 million question. What allows the CPA and the physician and the attorney to live in the partner category, meaning here, where we're saying they are highly important and irreplaceable, where the average agent or broker is seeing moderately important and easily replaceable? What do they have that we don't have? The point I'm trying to get is if that person all of a sudden says we are transferring to the East Coast or we're getting out of the business, you would say, oh my gosh, this person is irreplaceable, and there would be a pit in your stomach. You guys nailed it when I asked the question. It's interesting, most people don't get it. The more perceived knowledge the consumer believes you have, they're going to say, why would I leave J.G. Parker? They have so much knowledge about me, I'd have to start over with someone else. Correct? You think about it, you said, okay, let's go to a new pediatrician. Honey, are you kidding? A new pediatrician, our current pediatrician has seen the kids since they were born. They know so much about the kids. Why do you go to a new physician? They know so much about you. Why do you go to a new golf pro? The golf pro knows your swing. Why do you go to the beautician, knows the look you want? The babysitter, the kids are comfortable with a babysitter. The answer is knowledge. Knowledge remains king. Okay, let's talk at EI versus IQ. Define the difference. What's EI and what's IQ? If someone has a high IQ, what does that mean? You're intelligent. We get an IQ at a young age, and we cannot increase the IQ. But what's EI mean? What does that mean, though? Emotional intelligence meaning knowing how to read people, making people feel. In our business, IQ is really important, but what's even more important? EI. Knowing how to make people feel, knowing how to read people, and so forth. So I really believe as we start building out this, we might say, you know what, there may be other organizations that have high risk management IQ, but you know, we're going to put in a lot of very, very potent EI. So the long-term solution, when does brand differentiation leading to real growth occur? When there's a love affair between your customers and you. When the customer can't wait to sing your praises. So would you agree? That's really important. Okay, this is going to change right here, but where I was as of last Wednesday before the phone call was I was going to throw out a potential branding position. It is obviously going to be changing. Let me explain this process. You heard me introduce with $11 million book of business. I will explain a piece of how I did $11 million. I start with J&H. Okay, they had no training program. I'm 24 years old. I'm handed a book of business, including the U.S. Open Golf Championship at Marion. I never sold a piece of business until I was 34 years old. I was an account manager. I was a technician. So I started a division called, it was called Special Accounts, became Middle Market. So anyhow, I was self-trained. I was taking the INS program, and then I took CPCU. So literally, I was in the midst of taking CPCU as I switched jobs at Johnson & Higgins. They hand me 40 clients. I had vanilla bean importers, I had hotels, I had technology companies, I had private schools, I had the U.S. Open at Marion and so forth. I had all this stuff. So I will tell you right now how I began, and I'll tell you what I grasped then has been defined my career, and I'd like to give it to you today. Within CPCU or ARM or CIC, which many of you guys have taken, correct? There is something called the risk management process. If you want a great book, this is called ERM for Dummies. What's cool about it was written by risk managers of large corporations. So when you go through, this is not anybody, these are risk managers, and they talk about something called the risk management process. As you recall, I forget the guy on Shark Tank, he said if you could execute the process, who was that person there? Who said that on Shark Tank? Kevin said that. Can you execute it? All I've done is I introduce a process, I get buy-in to the process, and I execute the process. This is the process I had. It is so simple, and I'm suggesting simple is even better. Thanks for meeting with me today. My name is Scott Addis from the Addis Group. I come before you with a distinct process. The process, I believe, is radically, tremendously important to you and also to me. However, today, if you don't buy into the process, there's really no reason we can work together. May I explain my process? It's called Vantage. I think I came with Vantage 360. The 360 means you take a 360-degree angle around account. If you want to call it 365, meaning you're there 365 days a year, it's up to you whatever brand name you want to use. But let me explain my process, and I'm going to take a time out after each step. The first step is what I call discovery, discovering you and your business, or identifying exposures. Do you guys believe it's important that I do a deep dive and know your business from the inside out? Putting it another way, I don't think I can serve you if I really don't get inside your business. Then I ask a simple question. If you're in my shoes and have a curiosity and a desire to learn your business, how do I do it? Let the customer help you understand how you do it. And if there's a CFO that's been there for 4 years, when you came in as a CEO or the HR director, how did you learn the business? What's amazing is 95% of the time they'll say, would you like to meet some of my people? I'd love to. Who should I meet? Or they might say, sit on my safety committee, tour my facilities. Would you like to be an employee for the day? We'd love to have you come back and be an employee for the day. We'll give you roles so you can learn the business inside out. But I think this is a huge differentiator. All business owners and most leaders of company, what is their total passion? Their business. And all you're doing is say, teach me your business. By doing step 1, you automatically move to step 2, you become a strategist. So in step 1, I'll give you an example. They said, so you've got 100 vehicles out there and 10 vehicles are salespeople vehicles, correct? Yeah, that's correct. Do they take them home at night? Yeah. What's the issue? I'm not saying it's an issue, but would any teenage kids have an opportunity to drive the vehicles? Yeah, matter of fact, Joe and Ralph both have teenagers. They might have an opportunity, but why is that? What are you getting at? Well, do you have a personal use policy? What do you mean? Well, my concern is, and I don't know, I'm just trying to learn a little bit, is if you have teenagers driving your corporate vehicles, they could put you out of business. And didn't you say you had a supplier in Pacific Northwest, somewhere in Seattle area? Yeah, they're critical to us. What if they went down, where we're in deep doo-doo? Has anyone talked to you about contingent business income coverage? You know, I'm coming back to you now. I did do an interview with one of your people, and they said, in the bakery area you have, there's a guy delivering some rolls named Ralph, and he's saying some things to the women that are making him feel a little bit uncomfortable. And in my mind, he could be creating a hostile work environment. You know, you have first-party but not third-party employment practice liability coverage. Has anyone really explained that to you? So to me, the knowledge you get in step 1, the understanding of business, you automatically become a strategist. Now, step 3 is program implementation. This is the wellness program, the policies, the procedures, the insurance contracts, the claims management, and so forth. But here's the key question. Can you do a good job in step 3 if you haven't done steps 1 or 2? So step 4 is monitoring. You put a program in place. You've got is the program working for the customer? Businesses change, the economy changes, the industry changes. Is what we put in place working? This is my entire career in one page, you guys. That's all I did. I went out starting in 1990 to accountants and attorneys and clients and so forth and said, this is my process, and here's what I heard, or what did I hear? People would say, what when I explained this process? Our ability to really get inside your organization and get to know you is hugely important to us and you, and to be a strategist is most critical. And that's why insurance companies react so well to J.G. Parker is they view us as strategists. That is why we have such long-term clients, because they view us as strategists. But we can't do step 2 without step 1. John tugged at my heartstrings last night talking about his daughter, which you're aware of. But if you think in medical terms, what does a physician do? They consult in step 1 consultation. They diagnose in step 2, and then, and only then, do they treat in step 3. If you tried to treat in step 3 without first consulting and diagnosing, that would be called what? Malpractice. I believe today malpractice is happening every waking day because the well-intended agent or broker is shortcutting steps 1 and 2, and they're trying to treat primarily with insurance. So look at these stats, it's shocking. Loyalty, if you have a 5% increase in retention, that represents a 25 to 100% increase in profits. Companies with the highest customer loyalty grew at more than double the rate of their competitors. So if you said, is it really worth trying to engineer the customer experience, creating this love affair, the answer is absolutely yes. Amazon, Chick-fil-A, Google, Apple, BMW, Southwest, Starbucks, as well as you are trying to build an experience. It takes strategy, discipline, process, technology, relationship management, branding, leadership, commitment, execution, and benchmarking. Since you're in the room, I take it you're part of building the strategy for the customer experience? Are those words representative of what you're working on? Great companies like Chick-fil-A. Do you have Chick-fil-A out here yet? Okay. It just came into Philadelphia. It's crazy. You could have Arby's and McDonald's, and then you see the lineup for Chick-fil-A. It's crazy what they've done there. You go down to Disney World, for maybe Disneyland's the same way. It's crazy how they know how to engineer the customer experience journey. So Seth Godin says, you will grow as soon as you become remarkable, do something about it. But you know remarkable is not up to you. The customer decides how powerful your experience is. Let's give an example that you are my client, and I lay out everything we're going to do during the first year. I have a service plan there, we have stewardship reviews, and here we are a year later, I've done everything, I've executed to perfection. And I have your respect, credibility, and I've created a loyalty effect. Let's take a look after 7 years what the value of that client is. Well, if it stays at $10,000 in revenue and the exposures don't grow, that account is clearly going to be, after 7 years, $70,000. But after the first year, you know you've delivered on the P&C, may I introduce you to the benefits operation, similar size, you do the benefits. That's another $60,000. And then the personalized comes. It might be financial services products and so forth you're delivering. So what I'm getting at is you can start seeing what's happening. But then they go ahead and say, you know what, I would like to introduce you to an account near us because I really believe in it. You get referral harvesting. This account can be a $350,000 return. We're now going to talk about something called the ultimate question. And I'd like to throw this out to you. If you could ask just one question, not two, not three, one question of your customers to judge loyalty, intimacy, engagement, what would that question be? Bain and Company hired a guy named Fred Reichheld, and by the way, I asked him to speak, and he said he'd be glad to speak for $75,000 for 1 hour. Okay. So anyhow, he has written a book on the ultimate question. How likely is it you would recommend J.G. Parker to a friend or colleague? So today, there is something called the Net Promoter Score. Our relationship with the people we serve is the most valuable thing James G. Parker has. To ensure meeting our clients' needs, we've created the world's shortest survey. The survey is only one question, takes less than one minute to complete. We'd appreciate if you would take the 1 minute survey. Please call us any questions. Click SurveyMonkey. How likely is you to recommend a James T. Parker to a friend or colleague? Okay, 0 to 10. I'll go back and define that in a second. So here's what I'm thinking. I wonder whether before we build the unit, we ought to find out in our existing large accounts, the ones that give us 9s and 10s that love us, what are we doing now? If you get a 9 or a 10, that's called a promoter. That person is saying, at this point in time, I love you. They want to be a referral source. The question says, to what degree do you see as James G. Parker's referable? They give you 9 or 10. They'd almost expect for you to say, thanks so much, might you think about a firm or two in the area that we talk to? It's almost like a green light so when you get 9s and 10s. Now, a 7, and by the way, 9s and 10s do not take competitive bids. They're too much in love with you. Now, a 7 to 8, they're fence sitters. They're with you right now, but that's ones that could take competitive bids. We got to say, how do we move the 9 or 10? Now, I hate to say it, as good as you are, you will get some 0 to 6s. At this point in time, they're detractors. It might be the claim was mismanaged. It's somehow they're upset with the benefit costs and so forth. It could be that the certificate went out late or whatever. So let me give you the Net Promoter Score. Net Promoter Score, there's a score you can get, and it's kind of fun. You could actually do something fun for the staff and say, guys, if we can increase the score next year by 2 points, we're going to have a big party, for example. What this means is it's a percentage of promoters, 9s and 10s, less detractors. So let's say I have 100 clients respond. You have 80% are 9s and 10s. I'm sorry, 70% 9s and 10s, 20% 7s and 8s, and 10% gives you 0 to 6s. That's 70 less 10, that's a score of 60. Got it? But you can see these are Net Promoter Scores right now. My mind went right there and I said, I can't believe we have close to 5% of our staff, when asked, give us 0 to 6s. These are people saying bad things about us, bless you, in our community. So that's the idea of the Net Promoter. So that's an idea we don't have to do in here, but I was suggesting, why don't we at least benchmark the customer experience? This is a firm out of Detroit, nice size firm, not quite your size, but basically is they needed a brand, and they needed a way to articulate the brand. So what we did, we basically took the four-step process, and we started laying it out this way. But they came up with something called the Hershey Shield. So just know that I will test you, and the new slide deck, which we'll get in, will give you some names there. I'll just throw some out. I always ask people to come up with a cool name. So at this point, Vantage is the process name you've come up with, which I like the name, by the way. You guys have to decide, not me. And the other key is making sure it's protected, because here's what we want to say to large accounts or anybody. We at J.G. Parker have a proprietary process no one else in the world has. And within our process, there are tools and strategy proprietary to us that we will go ahead and execute there. So in this case, it just is a game changer. They have grown over 20-25% organically since putting in the Hershey Shield. Has anyone done confidential one-on-one employee interviews in here? So let me move ahead and talk at how I've executed that. Typically when I say, I'm just curious, you guys, as a CEO or CFO or executive director or HR director, your time is precious, correct? Correct? Your time is precious. Now, having said that, how could I do step one without taking your time? 95% of the people said, well, if you want to learn my business, would you like to meet my people? So I would like to go ahead, and thank you for doing this, have half an hour to 45-minute interviews with them, and let me tell you exactly what I'll be doing in each interview. Is that fair? With each person I meet, I'm going to ask them what they see as the core strengths of the business. I want them to tell me what they like most about the business, and I'm going to feed that back to you, by the way, without their names attached. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to push them 3 years out and say what they see as opportunities for the business, and I will feed to you what your people see as opportunities. And the last thing I'm going to ask them is what keeps them awake at night? What are the risk issues that most concern them? And I'll bring that back to you. So we interviewed 12 people. It was crazy the stuff we learned. Before we did it, the general manager says, when you do the interviews, everything here is perfect. I can tell you everything is absolutely, totally perfect. The policies, procedures, the training program, we found 43 issues. How helpful was it? You had morale, productivity down to actually bring back to this guy people are upset about the picnic. I tell you, employee interviews are absolutely, totally amazing. You want to feel empowered where people openly share with you strengths, opportunities, risk issues. That is a concept of the employee interview. So what I'm getting at is I think as we go through this, the people that are, because in some ways we're talking, what I find so cool about what you're doing right now is people aren't buying into you and the firm based upon price and product. They're buying into you based upon your value proposition and capabilities. And that's why I think when we actually, if you like the idea of doing the customer benchmarking and getting you guys to say, here's what they're, and in some ways you got to step back and as you're going through the process, watch really carefully next time, what am I doing right now to really push the right buttons? What phrases, what words, and so forth. We're going to go ahead and suggest a strategy map. Once again, this is a suggested strategy map. You guys might want to change this thing. The first thing is, I'm going to challenge you, and this is going to be the hardest thing we've done today, and there's an exercise you can take a look at if you wish. What are the existing capabilities in this firm? I mean, I like to use arrows in the quiver. What are the current arrows in the quiver? So I was given this, and it has, I assume it's off your website, but it has advantage risk assessment, and then it has claim review and monitoring, interact, human resource directions, perspectives, benefit management, safety net, ocean labor guide services, up close 360, risk center. So a lot of stuff there, but there's many other things. So my thinking would be is we've got to step back and say, what do we have? Obviously, you've got claims management protocols, you're doing employee manuals and so forth, but just start putting stuff in there. And if we start cataloging what we have now, that gets really interesting, okay? So we'll do that exercise. The fun is building what is this risk assessment process? You might want to put it in a 5-step, not 4-step, but we talk what is the process and what's risk improvement. The process branding we're going to talk about, how do we brand this? Playbook development. Was it your dad who was coaching, whatever? your dad probably at different points in your career had a playbook, correct? Does anyone coaching now, anybody coaching have a playbook? I'm actually talking about us building a playbook, and we actually have defined plays. And not only that, and I've done it with a number of organizations, and as we hire people, we actually might suggest they actually learn certain plays. And I'll show you that in a moment. We'll talk about visioning and marketing materials, metrics to track, and then I think it's critical as you're going down this path at the right time we get carrier buy-in. So that's the initial idea, but once again, this is just the idea for where we're headed after lunch. Okay, so that was just something where I was trying to put together in many ways, my value prop or my why. I thought we'd do an exercise that is going to be very helpful to you guys. And what I want you to imagine is that the risk manager at Foster Farms, who's obviously one of your larger employers in this area, or whoever handles the insurance has gone down. So that person's left the company for at least a couple months, and you are going to go ahead and fulfill that role. I don't know if they have a risk manager, but whoever oversees the insurance and risk management practices, what I'd like you to do is to assume that role, okay? On Friday the 6th, you're going to meet with the CEO, Laura Flanagan, and she realizes that Foster Farms has a lot of risk and risk issues, and she's just going to basically interview you and say, are you ready to assume this role? Okay, so here's what you're going to do. I would like you to think about what information do you want to gather? In other words, you are going to assume the role of overseeing risk and insurance in this organization. So you're going to walk in here tomorrow, you're going to be greeted by the receptionist and said, okay, what would you like me to gather? So huddle in a quick team and say what information you want to try to gather. And we'll come back in about a minute. Let's go ahead now and we'll go around and keep on going until we finished. We're going to start up front. Hi, my name is Betty Ann, and I'd like to welcome you to Foster Farms. It's a little bit upsetting. The gentleman I reported to who oversaw risk and insurance is out for the next couple of months, but I've heard you're a very qualified and astute risk consultant. For you to go ahead and be prepared to meet with our CEO, what information do you want me to gather? Name one thing.
Loss runs.
Okay, so you want claim data. What else? One thing here.
Their safety program.
Infinite safety, I'll get that for you. You guys.
So at least know where to go when the questions come up.
So if we go back to the steps 1 and 2, in many ways what I'm trying to reinforce is you are basically in steps 1. You're trying to discover, identify exposure. So in reality, you're gathering information in step 1 so you can move to step 2 and be a strategist. And that's helpful. So when you meet this lady, she's going to say, okay, she's going to test you, and you're going to be able to not only have knowledge, which is power, you're going to be thinking as a strategist. Got it? But I'd now like to walk through each of these steps, and if you can go back to your exercises. I hope this is going to be a very fun and very powerful program, but what I'd like you to do now is to look at exercise 7. It is my impression that this organization has invested heavily in capabilities, and you continue to develop capabilities in the safety area, compliance issue, the benefits area, the wellness area, and so forth. Would that be a fair statement? Okay, so celebrate, you guys. Start writing down capabilities. Don't worry about impact and differentiation. Just on the left-hand side, if you could write down as many capabilities. If you go beyond 15, that's fine. Okay, I want you to, at this point, based upon your knowledge or perceived knowledge, because I'm trying to make sure we have the confidence to move forward here, which we certainly should, is to other firms, looking at what we have here, how strong are we? And if we're going to go ahead and put this into the Vantage program, I'll just go a bloodborne pathogen program. We have numerous safety services, experience mod reviews, HR support with Think HR. We have OSHA compliance defense, access to labor law attorney. We have eCentral, which is administrative for health insurance, work comp claim reviews, dedicated P&C claim department, coverage counsel for questionable claims, in-house defense, in-house risk control consultant, active shooting procedures, Limelight employee benefits options, ERISA compliance, workers' compensation audit classification reviews, farm labor control licensing, MedCore, a nurse triage service, in-house bonding capabilities, a way to analyze coverage gaps, and HR 360 consultation. So if you think about it, let's take the HR area, for example. And my God, you got in compliance, how can you have anything more there, correct? You've got resources like crazy. Let's take the safety area. Your thoughts, Jared, on the safety area? You comfortable there and confident?
Pretty comprehensive for the compliance.
Okay. Bonding capabilities, claims, you have dedicated workers' compensation, nurse triages, outside counsel, and so forth. I mean, to me, you got the claims nailed in a huge way. Is there anything else here that you're sitting back and saying, my gosh, I mean, there's a gap there, because I'm seeing a very robust capabilities already. Now, let's talk at utilization. Are these being utilized, and let's take, it could be when we actually do the referability survey and come back with your top larger clients, and they love you. They might say they love you. I think a lot of it's going to be your own personality and whatever, but it could be capabilities here. So I want to make sure that you guys are clear on what I'm not suggesting. I think we make a real mistake if what we do is we load up our capabilities and we're actually flaunting and trying to sell based on our capabilities. What I'm trying to get is we're going to go reinforce the process. What I'm suggesting is the process will uncover the issues facing the organization. What I'm getting at is once we uncover the issues, do we have the capabilities of solving most issues? My position is I think you have absolutely almost any issue. Now, if you don't have the capability, I also think you have the network to get that capability. So I sit back and say that we're not going to try to get in a war of simply lining up capabilities. What we're going to do is simply talk about the Vantage process. And we're going to suggest going through the process and simply uncovering the fact there are loads of issues facing your organization. You can solve the issues. Okay? Was that helpful, realizing what kind of capabilities you have? Okay, so as you can see, that was a logo created. I just threw up the name 360. You can go 360. So I don't know if you like it or not, but here's my idea. And once again, we can go completely way to other names, but let's stay with this for a second. What I like about 360 is saying that we actually take a holistic view of that account, a 360-degree view of the account. If you like the I-365, that means that we are here 365 days a year. So does anyone have a preference, 360 or 365? I love this thing, but it's up to you guys. If you think about the power of this, we come before you with a proprietary process no one in the else world has. It's our perfected proprietary process called Vantage, okay? And here it is, Vantage Advanced Risk Assessment. It's beautiful. What do you guys think? And you can actually start putting a lot of stuff within Vantage, and Vantage becomes this four-step process. Under Vantage, we're going to be discovering, thinking strategic, put a plan in place, and we're monitoring. So these are some other names that just to give you some idea, with firms I work with, Radar, Risk Rover, Risk Runner, Discover Risk, Flight Plan 365, Risk Shield, Risk Source, RiskWise. I happen to think Vantage is as strong or better than any of these. So can you envision, as we do the 25,000 or 30,000 or whatever and more clients, you said, you know what, on these clients, maybe as we build up this process, we give them the Vantage for client retention, whatever else. Can you see that? Look at exercise 8, if you would. I first did this with a firm out of Kansas City called Thomas McGee, and it was so cool. They built their own playbook. I designed this for them. I helped them, so forth. So what I'm suggesting is we could actually take a lot of these tools here, and the first play is an offensive or defensive. Well, offensive means it's used for customer acquisition, defensive means customer retention, or both. A lot of the tools you listed here, a lot of the concepts are both offensive, defensive. You describe the play. something as simple, I was sitting in the Cayman Islands, and I went in one morning, I went ahead and basically I built like 15 plays in one morning. Not built, I went through this forum. But it's really, describe the play, when to use, or describe why to use, when to use, how to use the play. Next, in the back of this page. Then you get into impact. If we run the play, what's the impact? What are tools, resources need? Is there an in-house coach? Would someone be responsible? So for example, Neil said, you know what, hey, I will go ahead and take the analysis, the experience model analysis, okay? Is there a coaching staff needed, internal, external? And then are there other plays that connect to this? So do you like the idea is if we sat at some point and we actually had a playbook divided for offensive plays, defensive plays, we actually the plays described there. So in some ways, as you run into an account, you could say, do I go to the playbook and say, what do we have in here? Which play do we pick? And what you're doing is basically just saying, what plays do we put in the to acquire that account or retain that account? Well, what ends up happening, I find, is that our mind gets so tunnel vision on certain, we don't step back and realize all the capabilities. And what I'm suggesting is you guys have so many capabilities here, simply saying, guys, let's go through the list of capabilities, which one might apply, and maybe help each other and say, have you thought of this, had you thought of that, and next thing you have it. But I think also you got to look at the size and scope and complexity. If you're going against a major player on account that's going to be $4 million in premium, you might say, we're going to actually bring out as many plays as we can to go and do this. On the other hand, if it's going to be smaller or less complex, but that's the idea of actually building a playbook. I have gotten to the point where I never, ever walk out of a meeting unless I've applied, I call it RIOS, R-I-O-S. In other words, John, as we sit here today, what do you see as the core strengths of your business? He opens up and talks strengths, okay? And by the way, people like to talk of the strengths. What do you see today as opportunities and what do you see as risk issues? Okay, use that all the time. Strengths, opportunities, risk issues, and you clearly, I would like to show you the power, and I'll send you some stuff on the employee interview. Okay, now we get to your area. Is it correct to say visuals is your area? So you have tremendous talent to create visuals. Okay, you're being humble. How are you guys right now as far as visual appeal and what you've created? And whether it be, do you have in-house capabilities there?
It's getting constantly improving.
Okay.
Their branding's much more consistent, the message is consistent. Kind of look and feel is becoming more consistent, so it's not everybody doing their own thing.
Yeah, we don't make our own brochures anymore.
Right.
Okay, let's get into the next, and metrics. What are the metrics you're using right now to look at your success? Is it hit ratio? Is it retention? How are you now looking at metrics?
From the corporate standpoint,
Sales goal match.
we're looking at net new growth.
Okay. Now, I think we may have to flip it around, and this is where I think there might be a few organizations a little bit ahead of you right now, and basically is what are success indicators for the client? And it could be not just premiums and so forth, not just loss ratios, but going beyond that. So just know is that if we are really improving the client's risks, what are some outcomes we're getting for them? So this could be something we work on. I'd be glad to do whatever research I can. We can go to carriers and say, how are other people doing it and so forth. But I sit back and say, in the whole area of metrics to track, it's going to be your own metrics, what you want to track, but also how are we actually showing the client how we're improving their risk. If you go ahead and decide you're going to bring in multiple carriers and brokers and go through a bidding exercise, I'm willing to bet there's a band of quotes, bids you're going to get within this band. All carriers, I'd say it's probably within 15%. But let's talk at how do we have a completely different band. If you can demonstrate to an insurance carrier you have clearly improved your risk profile, maybe a policy, a procedure, a program, and somehow you can demonstrate your activities will impact claim frequency area, that's a different band. So what I'm suggesting is if you wish to go down the traditional means of simply calling in brokers and so forth, but what Vantage allows you to do is to allow us to do the risk assessment, but most importantly is to help improve your risk profile. That's how we really get the advantage in the marketplace. So I'll just say where I did over 1,000 brokerage of records in Philadelphia alone. That was my whole thing, some large, some small. And what I would do is I would purposely bypass the renewal process and come in after, usually 3 months. Why did I like 3 months? Typically the policies just came in 3 months later. The other brokers in quicksand. They had their shot, they did their best and so forth. So 3 months later, and the other thing was I would convince people that their most important renewal date is when? When's the most important renewal date if someone has a decent comp account size? The most important date of the year? It's at the 6 month point. Because as you know, most clients, I can't believe they don't understand how it's done. So you sit back and do a claim review and so forth, and you say, you know what, we're sitting here a month and a half away from the unit stats have to occur, and you now have 375,000 open reserves here. And have you gotten a phone call to go over these? No, I haven't. I'm not even in the loss runs. This is destroy. And look, you even said to me two hours ago, or 2 minutes ago, this guy's back door, the carpal tunnel shouldn't be there, and this is going to impact your mod. So I would go through the insurance contracts and put a coverage summary together for them, which they really typically hadn't had before. I would go through the claim data. I would go through the HR manual. Sitting on safety committees, it's a huge win. Most brokers don't. Would you mind if I came and sat on the safety committee and you get me minutes for the last year? They can certainly get the minutes there. Really very powerful. Anybody sitting on safety committees and listen to what they have to say? And then of course the employee interviews. So the way I always looked at it is I'm going to decide what arrows to shoot, and then I would decide on the size of the account. I know if I'm going after a sizable broker that has a great reputation there, I might have to pull more arrows, and I look at size account, how much am I willing to go invest in that account. The guys out of Kansas City, McGee, did something much stronger than I. Here's what they would do. They finished a meeting today. Do you have 10 minutes for me on Thursday? Sure, for what reason? I would like to hand deliver the plan, present it to you, and then we'll sign off. So they would actually hand deliver the plan, they'd walk through, and McGee actually put their signature there, and then they would say to the client, would you also put your signature? What am I signing? Is it a broker? No. It's simply a commitment to go through the plan. And they put their signature there. Once they got the signature, what did that mean? Once they got the signature, what did that mean? Once they got the signature, what did that mean? They had a new piece of business. I'm kidding you not. I can look back now over the last 12 or 13 years when I've been coaching and training. I know it sounds, McGee out of the gate went 34 out of 35. Another guy out of Ohio is now 67 out of 68. What we've realized is if you have a client agreeing to go through basically your process and execute, you basically have an account. I'd say 98 to 99%. Let's talk about value proposition. I'd like to explain the difference, and I love coaching this. If someone says you have a credibility statement and a value proposition, what's the difference between a credibility statement and value prop? Credibility is all about you. If you think about the client's mind, the first thing is this a credible person? Is this a credible firm? Credibility leads to trust. Now, I'm going to suggest you have an arrow in the quiver called a credibility arrow. There are times you have to go and pull that arrow out and explain to people why you're credible. Your designations, your time in the business, your knowledge of a class of business. The firm can add credibility. I suggest for younger producers, they have to sell the organization more than themselves, but over time, people buy people. They need to know the Parker's there, but they want to buy you as an individual and your own capabilities. So that's credibility. Value prop is what the customer really wants. How are you going to create value for me? So where credibility is about J.G. Parker, about you as an individual, your talent, your knowledge and so forth, that's credibility. Your value prop is what's in it for me. And ultimately, you as a customer are going to say this thing, okay, what's in it for me? It helps separate you from the competition. It enables the customer to appreciate the unique value you bring that others can't, enables you to attract and retain clients that have more fun. So if you said how important is this, it's hugely important because what we're talking about is at some point down the road, you're going to be articulating how Vantage 360 is a differentiator, right? If you agree to go through Vantage 360, may I talk about the impact and the value to you? The first thing is we're going to go ahead on an enterprise basis, identify the risk and uncertainties facing your business. And after we go through the risk and uncertainties, we're going to come up with a plan to how do we go ahead and mitigate these risks. And by doing that, we're going to be able to present you as best in class, create a feeding frenzy, and create bottom line impact. It's a continuum, if you think about it, of risk identification, risk mitigation, best in class, feeding frenzy, bottom line impact. I'd like to end by, if someone did a really good job, I think we'd like to listen to 2 or 3 of these, okay? So you're on the clock for 2 to 3 minutes. I'd like you to imagine a large client. We are actually getting in front of them, and very shortly you're going to talk about Vantage 360. So username Vantage 360. So let me go ahead and explain this in layman's terms. You're going to see something really sexy and seductive, very unique. So the idea is as follows, that the only thing out there right now where a customer can really benchmark their performance and actually get a score is a workers' compensation mod, correct? So what you're going to see now is a very cool concept called the intelligent quotient of risk management. It's been about 7 years in the works. People are using it right now. It's incredible. Knowing you guys, I think you could talk at broker records like you can't even imagine with this process. Oh, by the way, you could load all your key clients in there if you wish. You could have all your key clients over 25,000 of revenue, put them in there, okay, if you wish. So we push submit. Now, if you go down here, I'll read these things off. It's probably too small for you. There are 21 different assessments, and behind each assessment is a subject matter expert. So you have business continuity and crisis management,
About fleet safety.
claims management, cyber liability, directors and officers, discipline termination, employment practices, environmental liability, fleet safety, general liability, pre-employment screening, product contamination and recall, products liability, professional liability, recruitment, selection and hiring, substance abuse, wage and hour, workers' compensation, workplace discrimination, workplace safety, workplace sexual harassment. I kid you not, when I talk about experts behind, for example, substance abuse in workplaces, Dan Rather's former correspondent, Christine Clearwater, sitting in Boca Raton, Florida. She is there, she helped author this, and I'll show you where she's in a minute. She is there to consult with you and your clients. Fleet safety, we have the former head of UPS from Fleet Safety, there to help consult with you and your clients. So behind each one is truly a world-class expert. Okay, so when all you're asking is a series of questions, when you push submit, you're going to get an unbelievable report that's going to have a score and an action plan to improve the score. The analogy would be an SAT we get in junior year in high school. You get that SAT, there's a correlation of schools. Your parents say work hard to improve it. So this fits in beautifully. So here's a report. If you scroll down, it's going to have your logo, not mine, but here it says today, the date, the intelligent quotient of risk management. If you scroll down, it'll have your logo, not mine, not Beyond Insurance. The first page is an introduction. Dear Mike, thank you on behalf of James G. Parker to give us the opportunity of getting to know your business. So the first section, what is a risk issue? By the way, it's unbelievable education for us. What I'm doing in network, every month we have an IQM of the month. We had no idea Matt Lair would go down. In January, we actually had sex tracks in the workplace. At the end of the month, we had the expert get on there. So the first thing is, what is a risk issue? Then we get into best practices. So next is going to be best practices, so it's very logical. Okay, now we get to the next section. This is where it gets really sexy and seductive. As you can see, based upon the response to the risk check administered by James G. Parker on March 27th, Smith Inc. scored a 56 out of 100. Guys, let's not panic, that's why we're here. Now go to the next slide. What the computer automatically does, it pulls up the three things. We do these three things, your score goes from a 56 up to a 74. First statement, my organization has training testing with drug and alcohol use by drivers. You can read it to them. The next statement 8. This is a full-blown risk profile improvement action plan. If you're in, we have a number, and we will help you build this plan. You can decide to charge a fee or not, and you can decide to bring risk control in, or I'm going to show you the subject matter experts will help you build the plan. In this case, the former head of UPS will get on the phone with you and your client and build out this plan, okay? I will tell you how they're being used right now, 3 ways. Number 1, internal education. It's unbelievable for a new producer, by the way, to say every 2 weeks learn this and so forth. So I would say new producers, but all of us. Every year we're getting this updated, it's updated once a year and so forth. And if you don't feel comfortable and someone brings up and says, okay, we've got a product recall issue, you said, you know what? I think we might have a solution. You go back and study that, get on the phone with a subject matter expert and talk to them. We have underwriters all over this. And if you go through this, and each year, even if it's one module work to improve that and so forth, it's a way we get to the underwriters. They say, wait, if I leave James G. Parker, I lose the IQMs, don't I? So this becomes a retention tool. I never guessed it, but we're getting higher commissions, we're getting more credits, and people are charging fees on this stuff. Okay, now let's talk to the consultants. These guys are there free of charge to give you, now half these are wholesalers. So for example, on products recall, we got the best in the business we know in the world, we think, in products recall. He will consult with your clients and with you because he knows if he does a placement, he's going to make money as a wholesaler. That is the ICRM. We've been through a lot today. We've gone through quitters, campers, and climbers. We've been through differentiation of the purple cow. We've been through lessons learned from the sharks. We've talked about the essence of you really knowing what is your true cause. We've talked about brand differentiation, the customer journey. We gave a situational case in Hershey, 8 steps, and then a value proposition accelerator, and now we've actually shown you the ICRMs. So if you would go ahead, I'd like to say if there's at least one takeaway from the program, something today, whether it's being, my gosh, I've got to work on my value proposition, or I really feel I've got to really dig down on my why. I know for the sake of time, I'll just end by saying sometimes when you have achieved what you're doing, you don't look back and quite realize where you are. In the United States right now, you are not only a player, you're in rare company where what you've achieved. Your potential is limitless. So I just want to say thank you for having me here today, and I'd love a chance to work with you guys in the future, but I just want to thank you for John making it happen, Jared coming to Philadelphia, and thank you, Jim, for all you've done already. So thank you.
Thank you, Scott. We really appreciate it. So our next step is I'm going to schedule a conference call with all the attendees to get everybody's feedback, and we'll talk about next steps. Okay? So I'll put some dates on it. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.